Ladies and gentlemen, the Alabama Senate will now come to order. Our prayer today will be delivered by Senator Dan Roberts. Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let's pray. Father, as we come before you this day, we acknowledge that you are the Lord God, compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, abounding in loving kindness and truth. And we worship you as the Lord God. And as we serve today, this state, in this chamber, in the chamber below, I ask that you would work. And Lord, we commit the work that we do today to you. Pray that you would lead, guide, and direct our steps. And we praise you and thank you that you loved us first. And we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Senator Roberts. Today, the pledge will be led by Senate Page Luke Vincent from Decatur, Alabama. Lucas Page and for Senator Orr.
Attention, salute, pledge.
Thank you, Luke. Secretary, call the roll.
Mr. Albritton. Baseball. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Bell. Mr. Butler. Mr. Carnley. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chastain. Ms. Coleman. Ms. Coleman-Madison. Mr. Elliott, Ms. Figures, Mr. Gavan, Mr. Gudger, Mr. Hatcher, Mr. Hovey, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kelly, Mr. Kitchens, Mr. Livingston, Mr. Melson, Mr. Orr, Mr. Price, Mr. Reed, Mr. Roberts, Mr. Sessions, Mr. Shelnut, Mr. Singleton, Mr. Smitherman, Mr. Stewart, Mr. Stutz, Mr. Wagner, Ms. Weaver, Mr. Williams,
Mr. President.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have 30 senators present, which is a quorum. The Senate is ready to transact business. Senator Wagner.
Mr. President, move that we excuse absent senators.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. President.
Senator Wagner.
Move that we dispense with the reading of the journal from the previous legislative day and that we adopt said journal.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. Now move on to introduction of bills.
Mr. President,
Senator Jones.
move that we allow for the introduction of bills and committee reports at any point throughout the day.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. All right, Senator Smitherman.
Thank you for recognizing me, Mr. President. I request a moment of personal privilege.
You're recognized.
Thank you very much. Good morning, members. Today's moment in Black history is a lady by the name of Miss Janetta Sissom. How many of y'all know who Miss Sissom is? And okay, you will know, and you'll be so proud you won't know what to do. Yeah, there you go. You're going to college. Many parents have spoken these words to their children, but when Mr. Sissom made this statement to his daughter, Janetta, he never envisioned that one day she would attend meetings with renowned rocket scientist Dr. Wernher von Braun, help to shape America's space program, and eventually land a man on the moon. Janetta Sissom, the daughter of a sharecropper farmer, was the first African-American female mathematician and scientist at the National Aeronautical and Space Administration, better known as NASA. The Marshall Space Flight Center, located in Huntsville, Alabama. Like her Hidden Figures counterpart, Janetta Sissom was more than a human computer. She was a pioneer and a problem solver. As an African-American female growing up in rural Alabama during the 1940s and 50s, college was not in the mix for the typical sharecropper's daughter. However, there was nothing typical about Sissom. Her parents made education a top priority. Sissom attended segregated schools with very few teachers and no high-level science or mathematics books. Additionally, African Americans were not allowed to go to public library where these resources were available. So the odds of going to college and becoming a mathematician and scientist were definitely stacked against her. Despite these obstacles, Sissom worked hard and received a partial scholarship to attend Alabama A&M University, where she earned a both bachelor and master's degree in mathematics. After receiving her master's in mathematics in 1964, Sissom joined NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center as an entry-level mathematician. By 1967, she had published a NASA report, Survey of Solar Cycle Predictions Models, which put forward techniques for improving forecasting of the sunspot cycle. Sissom also worked on the Apollo Moon project, co-writing a computer program to determine the landing site for the lunar module. In the mid-1970s, she worked as a space scientist in the Space Environmental Branch of Marshall Space Science Laboratories and later led activities in Marshall's Atmosphere and Plasma in Space project. Although Sissom was a brilliant mathematician, she experienced many of the same discriminatory policies African Americans and women faced in the 1960s. Similar to the issues highlighted in the movie Hidden Figures, Sissom had to overcome the biases against African Americans and women in profession, mathematical and technical roles. Why do you need a promotion? Her husband is a teacher. One supervisor asked her. It was after that when Sissom was offered the chance to go back to school in Michigan to work toward a PhD. She took it. To help level the playing field for minorities and women, Sissom volunteered and served as equal opportunity officer in NASA. In 1975, Sissom wrote an article for the National Technical Association, Equal Employment Opportunity, and the Supervisor, a counselor, View, which argued that many discrimination complaints could be avoided through adequate and meaningful communication. Later, Sissom worked at NASA Gordon Space Flight Center outside Washington, D.C., and NASA headquarters in Washington. While at NASA headquarters, she was a computer system analyst responsible for analyzing and directing NASA's management, information, and technical support systems. Janetta Sissom is a trailblazer, and we can truly say she reached for the stars and landed on the moon. Thank you, Mr. President. And that's our moment today in Black history.
All right, thank you, Senator
members, very
Smithman.
much.
Senator Smithman, what'd you think about that Auburn basketball game, winning by 40?
Hey, they are for the real deal, and I'm just gonna tell you, they can go. But now I must say this, and it's not picking sides; it's just telling it like it is. Alabama's like Jekyll and Hyde. You catch them on Jekyll, you gonna be in trouble.
You're right.
Go Hyde. If they hitting them threes, you gonna be some trouble.
Yeah.
But I say this: there's no team deeper than Auburn. Auburn can go 10 deep. And
right.
they showed that last night. They destroyed them.
It was fun.
Yes.
All right, appreciate you.
All right.
All right, real quick, if I can get everybody's attention, I've asked Senator Reed to come up and for a moment of silence and let him explain what this is about.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for offering me your attention on a somber topic. But I want us to be aware of this because as this body is one that not only works on behalf of the people of Alabama, but is an entity that is very interested in caring about those that are a part of our membership and those that work to support us in all that we try to do in our tasks for the people of our state. We've got a gentleman who is someone that's very familiar to you all. You see him all the time here within the building. His name is Josh Taylor. Josh is a member of the security detail for the Lieutenant Governor. Josh's daughter, Alexandria Jade Taylor, is deceased and is going to be buried today. So this man's lost his little girl. And so I want us to have a moment of personal privilege, or ask for the moment of personal privilege, just so we can have a moment of silence to be able to remember Josh and his family in this difficult circumstance and the loss of this young lady. So if you would join me in a moment of silence, I would appreciate it. Lord Jesus, we pray that you would be with Josh Taylor and his family today, this day of such difficulty. And we'll be careful to give you the praise for it. In thy name we pray. Amen. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Reed.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right. Do we have House messages? Okay. All right, now move on. Committee reports? Yeah. All right, now move on to committee reports. Secretary, call the first committee.
From the Committee on Children and Youth Health, Senate Bill number 53 receives a favorable report by a vote of 7 ayes and 0 nays and 2 abstentions.
Mr. President, I'd like to have a title read.
All right, Secretary, read the title.
Senate Bill number 53 relating to child labor to amend sections 25832.1 and 25845 Code of Alabama 1975 to eliminate the eligibility to work form and to repeal section 25846 Code of Alabama 1975 relating to the eligibility to work form be enacted by the legislature of Alabama.
All right. Well, this bill's received a second read and be placed on the calendar for next legislative day. Secretary, call the next committee. Oh, I'm sorry. This concludes committee reports. All right. Do we need a motion to get committee reports done today? Okay. All right. Now move on to motions and resolutions. Any motions or resolutions? Okay. All right, Senator Orr.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I have a resolution recognizing someone who worked for the state for decades, many, many years, Jackie Graham, and this commemorates her work at the State Department of Personnel as the director for quite some time, and I'd like to submit it this.
All right, Secretary, read and receive the resolution, please.
Senate Joint Resolution number 15 by Senator Orr, commending Jackie Graham for professional achievement on the occasion of her retirement as director of the Alabama State Personnel Department.
Mr. President, I'd like unanimous consent to add all senators as co-sponsors.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
This time, I'd like to move for immediate consideration of the resolution.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution's adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks, Senator Orr. All right, Senator Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a SJR.
All right, Secretary, read and receive the SJR.
Concur today.
Senate Joint Resolution number 16 by Senator Williams, naming the bridge on Wilmer-Georgetown Road that spans Alabama State Highway Route 158 in Wilmer, Alabama, the Ruby Merle Stringfellow Memorial Bridge.
Yes, I'd like consideration of doing it today and all senators signing it, please.
All right, any objection to add all senators co-sponsors? Hearing none, so ordered. All right, now we move for adoption.
Move for adoption.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Resolution is adopted. Thanks, Senator Williams. All right, any other motions or resolutions? Senator Wagner.
Mr. President,
Yes, Senator Wagner.
have a report from Committee on Rules.
All right, Secretary Reed received the report from the Committee on Rules.
From the Committee on Rules, Senate Resolution Number 17, Special Order Calendar. Be it resolved by the Senate of the Legislature of Alabama that immediately upon the adoption of this resolution, the following business in the order set forth below shall be the special paramount order of business for the 6th legislative day only, taking precedence over the regular order of business or any pending or unfinished business. On page 2 of the calendar, Senate Bill 63 by Senator Carnley relating to the County Commission. On page 3, Senate Bill 81 by Senator Singleton relating to the Board of Registrars. On page 4, Senate Bill number 84 by Senators Bell and Orr relating to filing fees. On page 5, Senate Bill 23 by Senator Williams regarding food products. On page 4, Senate Bill number 83 by Senator Smitherman regarding indigent defense. On page 5, Senate Bill 55 by Senator Orr relating to the Personnel Department.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
move that the Senate adopt the report from the Committee on Rules using the historic roll call.
Mr. President.
Yes, Senator
I'd like to
Singleton.
speak to the calendar, please.
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the audience. We have a calendar here today that we finally got to some calendar that I think that may move the needle in the state of Alabama. While we've been dealing with some bills in the last couple of days that I just don't see where they move the needle here in the state of Alabama. There's been more of what I call a red meat agenda, and that red meat agenda is just about politics and not about really moving what we need to move. We dealt with libraries on last night, archives. We dealt with, we're going to have a lot of these other bills that are going to come. But at least this calendar here at least will give us a calendar that we can look at and say that it does something for the people of the state of Alabama. It is a calendar at least with a couple of Democratic bills on it. And I noticed that we have not been meeting, a lot of these committees has not met over the last couple of weeks in order to get more bills out. That's why we're set here with a limited amount of bills that we can deal with. I also understand that the House has not met on any of their committees no more than maybe tourism and some other, because gaming has been their #1 priority. So today we're going to deal with County Commission limitation and liabilities of regarding use and public funds. I'm interested to see where that bill is going to go. Board of Registrars bill is a bill that I'm handling. I think we'll get an opportunity to talk about, because I think there's been some miscommunication and misconception about what this bill really does. And I think your registrars are calling you, they're getting all panicky and upset, talking about quotas and all these different things. And clearly when they came to the committee on yesterday, they totally didn't understand what this bill was about. And I appreciate the chairman of the committee and setting them straight on language that they had misconstrued to be in the bill that definitely wasn't in the bill. I sponsored that bill, and this was the second year that I sponsored this bill, and we're trying to give them a raise, and they want to fight a raise that we're trying to give them, and it just baffles me in terms of where we're going with that. And they even had the audacity to say, we don't want this raise, we'll file a bill and get our own raise, So I don't know what they want, so we'll deal with that. And there's a bill here now on filing fees not required for certain qualified domestic relation orders. I think this is going to be a good bill, because a lot of times when people in domestic violence, those people who are victim of domestic violence really does not have the ability to be able to pay those fines and fees that is necessary to pay in order to keep their cases moving. We also have SB 23, which is dealing with food products. And I think that my good friend from Mobile County is going to deal with this, and we'll get this bill out because it's deal with genetically produce meats that sometimes we don't know what we're getting outside of, I want a real cow steak. I don't know if I want one that's been genetically, produced. But at the end of the day, we'll get to talk about that a little bit and see what it is that the problem with that meat. I know that the Commissioner of Agriculture, I heard him speak against that at a conference that I had attend at forestry. He mentioned about these byproducts that was coming through our grocery stores. And it was interesting to see that Conecuh Sausage is expanding its company here in the state of Alabama. I think it's going to go to Andalusia, where the Conecuh Sausage is expanding its footprint in the state of Alabama, coming out of Illinois here to the state of Alabama. We also have a bill, another Democrat bill that's on here that's based on indigent defense, which provide for a membership and review process for that board to provide for compensation for attorneys. And so I think that that is something to make sure that people have due process and rights to be able to move forward with their cases. This is going to be a good bill. And the last bill is about the personnel department requiring director to regularly access job requirements and remove college degree when practicable. I want to hear about that and why would we be removing college degrees when it comes up. And maybe I'm misreading something in this bill, and we'll get the gentleman to come up and talk about it. But at this time, Mr. President, I want to yield to the gentleman from Jefferson County that he wants to speak on the calendar at this point in time. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Senator Singleton. Senator Smitherman.
No. Thank you, Mr. President. I want to start off with good tidings. So it's always good to start off good. And the good tidings that I want to bring is that I want to thank the body in general and thank the Rules Chair in particular and the Rules Committee for hearing the concerns that I had expressed about the fact that the agenda did not reflect bills from the minority side. And when I say minority party, I'm not just minorities. But I'm going to say this kind of early on, so when we get there, at least, the body can be thinking about this right now, and we can move in that direction. If you look on the second page, you'll see that there is a bill, SB 83. I did not know that it was going to be on here. I mean, I'm glad it's on here for the fact that you're considering putting bills from the minority party side as we do. So from that perspective, I am. So I'm not complaining in that vein. But what I'm going to ask the body to do when we get to that bill, if you would support me in carrying it over to the call of the chair, it's the senator from Huntsville and I were on the committee together, and we are working on some things that he has mentioned, and he just not has had an opportunity to bring those things forward yet, and so he's working on that now, and so we are not going to prolong you today with the bill sitting there while we're trying to work through this. We're just going to carry it over, and if you all would support me on that at that time, and then we'll he and I get back to it real soon, and you'll have a chance to address it. The calendar, I'm like the senator, like our minority leader. I'm like him. I would like to know, though, a little bit about these bills. I'm glad to see that the board of, and I think this is right, that the board of registrars are supporting it's SB, what is it, 81. So I'm glad to see that, and I want to say this as well. So this is kind of this is a good moment. How much time do I have left? Okay, good. This is a good moment. Me to kind of talk about these bills and where I might feel like I would stand on some of these bills that I know. I'm in full support myself of SB 84. Because I think that's a practical way of addressing what we need to address. And when he gets up and tell you about the bill, you're going to see what I'm saying. I mean, that's just practical. That's practicality. So I just want him to know I support him on from that aspect, 100%. I see this SB 23, and I feel real good about it as well. It's a bill that I think that I've already, the sponsors already shared to me the merits of this bill, and so I'm real familiar with it. So that is a good thing. That's a good thing on that one. And of course, as I said about mine, the one I'm sponsoring, I'm going to ask for it to be carried over. And then I don't understand SB 55 when they said about college degrees. I don't understand that. That's all. I'm not saying I'm for or against it. That's one I hope that the sponsor will kind of share with us what this bill would do and how it's a benefit to us. Now, oh yeah, and SB 63, I don't know what that one does to the extent of being able to say what my total position would be on it. So when we get started, if he'll just tell us about it, you know, it probably is good. I'm gonna give him benefit of the doubt. It probably is a good bill because he generally, you know, carries bills that are beneficial to people in Senate District 18 as well. So I'm looking forward to hearing about that also. I'm curious to see what's going to be our line up for committee meetings next week. And you know what we're gonna be moving to do. I think that we're gonna have some interesting issues coming up from the House. I think for us all over, and that's gonna make things interesting up here as well. So they will probably be there if they're taking up. Do anybody know if they're taking up the issues that came out of committee? No, this will be the second reading. Today is the second reading. That'll be Tuesday. Yeah, that'll be Tuesday where they probably, you know, they probably gonna have to bring some cots on Tuesday. They gonna probably have to bring some cots because they gonna be there a long time, I think, on Tuesday, you know. So, and we probably gonna have to do our work and then leave the journal open so they can just, you know, instead of sitting there waiting on them, we can just leave the journal open because ain't nothing we can do anyway but receive it. So and then if that's not the mindset of the body, I get close to the journal and we have to get it the next time we come. So I don't know, you know, but I do know that the day seems like it ought to move relatively smooth, you know, and I had to say that because I was coming down the hall and I was asked this question and I said, you got these tennis shoes on, what did that mean? And I just told him for the day, it just means I want my feet to be comfortable. That's nothing big about that. How many people stay up around the Hanceville area? Anybody? Who represents Hanceville? Yeah. All right. Well, you know, you're not doing nothing. Come to the school Friday around 10:30. Yeah. Yeah. Wallace State. Yeah. And who represents Russellville? The senator, he represents Russellville. Then he needs to come on over to see Russellville. We play Russellville. I know they can shoot. They can put them threes up though. So we got to play some defense. But yeah.
This is the one you're looking at carrying over, is it?
Yeah.
You're gonna carry it over today?
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Hey,
But Ted,
I'll tell you.
yeah.
I'll get with you.
Okay. Hey. That was because I'm being asked about it. Sponsors, they didn't know I was going to request that bill be carried over, but let me say this: they didn't know it, and I didn't know it was going to be on there. But the uniqueness of that is simply this: we can't ever get past. We as a body can't ever get past that when we give our word, stick to our word. We can't do that because that's the most valuable thing that we have in here when we give our word. And I gave my word to him that I was not going to move this until and I'm not talking you, Senator, I'm talking to some folks out there who listen. You know, I can't eat a mic right now, so I can go out there and talk to them, so they hear me. I'm talking to them, I said, but when I they know that. When I give my word, that's my word is my bond, you know, on that. And so that's why I'm requesting that, and it's not anything about anything else. So I wanted to just say that so that they would know that. You know, we were working trying to get it done, and in fact, my co-sponsor didn't even know it, and that's the general fund chair. He didn't know that it was going to be carried over like this. So I'm saying to him that, you know, but he knows what we were talking about in the committee about trying to work on a few little things on there. Now, I see the sponsor standing to my right of the last bill, and I need for him to explain to me kind of what is this. That's SB 55. So, but you can wait. Yeah.
Let the interest bill.
Yeah, that's all. Because I don't have too many more minutes left anyway right now. And then it's not a debate. I just want to know what it do. That's all. That's all. I told him, I said, if you got it got to be something good. So I'm gonna let you tell us what it is, you know, that we can get a little understanding about it. That's all. And you can start out, but when you get to your bill to tell us, you know, and then that'll be good enough too. Okay, all right. That'll work. How much more time do we have?
You got 2 minutes.
Okay, 2 minutes and 40 seconds. But you know, it's the one thing about time I've noticed that it don't stop. The little hand, I can stop talking and sit there for a minute, but that little hand is gonna keep on moving. And just keep on moving, and golly. You know, now back in the old days, it wasn't like that. I see several people sitting in there, and I see one sitting right to my right. In the old days, we actually stopped that clock. We pulled the plug. About 11:50, we did a 45. We pulled the plug, and everybody talking about it past 12. We said, no, it's not. And the people be taking pictures all back there talking about it's supposed to be past 12. We said, in here, it ain't past 12. And we get some more work done. But of course, that was a different time. And now, you know, we have the digital time and the electronic time and all that. And so, you know, the clock is going to keep moving. So that means we just have to do some things within that time that we have. I think that, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, I'm turning it back over to you, and we'll move forward.
All right, we have a motion to adopt the special order calendar using the long roll. All right, Secretary, call the long roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Bell, Mr. Butler, Mr. Carnley, Mr. Chambliss, Mr. Chastain, Ms. Coleman, Ms. Coleman Madison, Mr. Elliott, Ms. Figures, Mr. Gavan, Mr. Gudger, Mr. Hatcher, Mr. Hovey, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kelly, Mr. Kitchens, Mr. Livingston, Mr. Melson, Mr. Orr, Mr. Price, Mr. Reed, Mr. Roberts, Mr. Sessions, Mr. Shelnut, Mr. Singleton, Mr. Smitherman, Mr. Stewart, Mr. Stutz, Mr. Wagner, Ms. Weaver, Mr. Williams,
Twenty-nine ayes, 0 nays. The special order calendar is adopted. Secretary, call the first bill on the calendar.
On page 2 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 63 by Senator Carnley regarding county commissions. BR pending.
Mr. President, I move for adoption of the BIR using long roll.
All right. Would you like to use previous roll?
Previous roll, I'm sorry.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Hold
President.
on 1 second.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams,
Knocking it.
29 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 2 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 63 by Senator Carnley relating to county commissions.
All right, Senator Carnley.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this bill, SB 63, attempts to separate and distinguish between the discretionary funds that are set up by local laws. So what's happened is an elected official, whether it's a probate judge, a sheriff, that's under the county, they create a discretionary fund through a local law. This money is separated from the county's general fund, and they can use that money however they please. You know, if they need to use it for equipment, or again, it's their discretion how they want to use that. And the county has no oversight of that, so they can't say, you know, oh, well, you can't spend the money on the things that you want to do here because it's illegal, or you know, it's not approved. But what happens is if there is a suit brought against that local official, currently the county can be tied up into that lawsuit, even though the county commission and the county administration has no say in how those monies are being spent. And so what we're attempting to do with this is just say that if that county official, that elected official and his discretionary funds are sued, that they won't name the county commission in that suit. And so what it does is it separates, and it's not that we're trying to keep anybody from being held accountable. So I talked to our public examiners. They would still be audited. Those discretionary funds are audited just like the general fund for the county. And when they are audited, if they find something that's, you know, that's inappropriate, that elected official is held accountable, you know, to repay that money back to the fund. But what this says is if a private citizen, you know, comes and says, hey, hey, probate judge, you spent this money illegally, we're going to sue. It allows them to go after that official and the discretionary fund, but it prevents them from going to the county commission and tying them up into this lawsuit, mainly because they have no say-so in how they're doing this, how they're spending this money. Now, if they had oversight of it, then yes, they should be held accountable because they're signing off on it and they're complicit with what's going on. But when these local laws are passed, this money doesn't even pass through the county's general fund. It gets deposited directly into this discretionary fund. And when it does that, again, they don't get to see the books. They don't know when they write checks or how much they write checks for. And so we're just trying to make sure that our counties are not being brought into something that they really have no control over. So just yield to you. If you, Mr. President, I'll yield to my colleague if he has questions.
All right, Senator Smitherman, I expect you to have a lot of questions for Senator Carnley. He was excited about standing up there for a while.
Thank you, Mr. President. No, Senator, I don't have any questions. You can go on and move. You've explained it well. I just didn't understand it. I understand now what you're saying, that if the discretionary funds, that you're just saying that the people who have the discretion and who gets the funds, then they should be responsible for whatever they need to do with the funds, or responsible for using them in a manner that will be appropriate. That's what you're saying.
That's it.
So I don't have any problem with it myself at all.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Senator Smitherman. Senator Van. Oh, all right. Senator Carnley, you want to move for final passage using previous role?
Yes, Mr. President, requests final passage using previous role.
All right. Any objection? Okay. All right. Hearing none, so ordered.
Straw Britton. Mr. Williams.
30 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 63 passes. Thanks, Senator Carnley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can I have a point of personal privilege?
You're recognized.
I want to let everybody know my colleague there, Mr. Roger Senator Smitherman, coach. Need to wish him well this tomorrow. He's got a big game in Birmingham and Ramsey, and we'll be rooting for you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I hope I get an opportunity to bring him down here, and then we can showcase him to the legislature. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Maybe you'll show us some hardware.
I hope so. I hope it's blue too. That means we got number one.
Senator Smitherman, I think you're going to win. I believe in you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr.
All right.
President.
Secretary, call next bill.
I'll make sure you all. On page 3 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 81 by Senator Singleton relating to the Board of Registrars. VR pending.
All right, Senator Singleton.
Mr. President, I know this is a bill that may have brought some controversy, and y'all been hearing from your registrars back home. We talked about this a little bit earlier. They came to testify yesterday from the association against this bill, and I think this bill actually helped them versus any harm. And I think that there was a lot of miscommunication, even as they testified. They even totally misquoted information that was in the bill. As the chairman will allude, that is in his committee, that he could attest to that we tried to get them straight, that they were totally off and wrong about their communications about this bill. I don't know who read this bill for them and who interpreted it for them, but they were totally wrong about this bill. And I know they've been calling you all with the same information, and they're your registrars back home, and that's where government starts, at the local level. So I'm willing to stand here, answer any questions about this bill before this bill is voted on. And if this bill is not, if you're not ready to vote on today, I'll be willing to carry it over to call of the chair so we can move past it, so you can better get educated on it, and we'll come back to it. But I would love to at least adopt the BIR if we can, and then we can put it in a position and go forward. With that, Mr. President, I would like to move for adoption of the BIR, use of previous role without objection.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
Thirty ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstention. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 3 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 81 by Senator Singleton relating to the Board of Registrars.
All right, Senator Singleton.
Mr. President, I see the pro tem standing across. He has something he wants to say. I yield to the president.
All right, Mr. Pro Tem.
Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Leader. I'm interested, and I want our body to hear about your explanation on this, and I need to know it for myself. I've had registrars in 2 different counties that I represent. One registrar called me and says, support, support, support. We've got a small pay raise in this that is important to us. Then I had another one that called me and said, vote no, vote no, vote no, because of an element where they think they're being required to do something in this legislation in regards to who can be appointed as a registrar. So I'm one of the ones that's conflicted in trying to understand more about exactly what's going on, and I want you to try and address at least those 2 issues in the legislation for myself and other members of the body.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. Mr. Pro Tem, I would do that. Thank you very much. Under the current law, a member of the Board of Registrar must meet certain qualifications. And under the law, the governor, the auditor, and the commissioner have those appointments, okay? What this bill code would amend that part of it. What we're asking to do for those who are making the appointments, just to, that they shall ensure wherever possible that they can, to make sure that the membership of the board reflect the diversity of the state. It's not that they have to do it, it's only to ensure where it is possible that they could do that. I know that there are some counties that they're not gonna be able to do that, and they don't have to do it, but they will at least coordinate together and try to make it happen. It's like being in a black belt county. And because when I look at it, Mr. President, is that the Board of Registrars should be neutral. It should not be about Republicans, it should not be about Democrats, because we're talking about an electoral process to where everybody, versus black, white, citizen, everybody comes to that Board of Registrars to register to vote, and they should be comfortable to go to that Board of Registrars. So what this bill also does is allow them a pay raise. Goes from $100 a day, $80 a day to $100 a day. The bill also requires them to post their working days. It doesn't say there has to be a uniform working days of all 67 counties. Some of them got misconstrued, the fact that said that we can't be open every day that the courthouse is open. We're not asking you to do that. As a board, you set your days, but whatever those days are, just post them so where the public would know what those days are. And they had a problem with that, and we just wanted to say, post your days so that everybody will understand what days you're going to be there. Then they had a problem with, well, if we're out at a conference? If you're going to be at a conference, just say we're closed for today, out for a conference, be back said date, okay? Just like you would say, I'm out to lunch. That's all we're asking in this bill, because most of the time people in counties are conflicted on the days that they are working. They've never been posted in terms of some counties, and some counties may do this, but it's not a uniformity across the board to where they post the days that they're working. We're not telling you got to put it in the newspaper. We're not telling you got to go online and do it. We're not telling you got to make some public radio announcement. We just ask you to post it. Hopefully that it is where the public can see it and the public will understand exactly what days you're working. So then I can know, I can tell my 18-year-old son, well, son, you can go up there and get registered to vote. Or you can tell your 18-year-old daughter, go up there and get registered to vote because they are open today or they're closed today. And so that's what we're just asking of them to do. And so they was confused about that. They're confused as to whether or not they're going to be state or they're going to be county employees under this. Right now, they get their funding from the state, which goes down through the county, and the county pays them. This bill would not mess with any of their insurance. It would not mess with anything that they already have. This bill does not change anything at that level, okay? And so the The counties provide them buildings, they provide them materials. Some counties does a little bit different. Some counties may even give them a little extra pay, for being in there, but that's on the county. The changes that we're making is the money that's going to come from the state down to them. The fiscal note on this is about $800,000 to the state to be able to do this, to make this change. And so we're just trying to make sure that they get a raise. We want them to be able to post their days. We're not asking them to work any more days than what their contracts require them to work. We just want them to post it. We're just identifying whether or not they're state and or county workers. We're saying basically it doesn't show, but this doesn't affect any of their insurances or any other benefits that they get from the counties, okay? And also, it doesn't require the appointing authorities to do anything differently than what they are doing. All we ask them to do wherever possible, that they will look at that and try to make it happen. If they don't do it, we just ask that they get together and try to make that happen. It doesn't say a share, it used the terminology share, but it's not, it's just perspective. It is not to where they gotta do it and it's absolute, it's not. So we understand that it doesn't create a quota, and those are the words that they use, that it creates a quota. It does not create a quota. And usually these people reappoint the same people over and over and over again most of the time anyway. I know I had some people in my county, even though I'm in the Black Belt County, where there are 3 Republicans that are appointed right now, but I have 3 black registrars, because they realize that in this county they dealt with the people that's in this county. For what reason they did that, I don't know, but they did it. And so I think the process is fair, but there are some counties to where Montgomery County, I think as an example came up yesterday, here's Montgomery County, when a young lady used quotas, that Montgomery County is 64% African American, and there's none whatsoever. And so all they ask for is consideration in situations like that, that if it can happen, then allow it to happen. There's nothing that said that they have to. We're not creating a quota. And I think that that's where they got confused. And they got confused on the language, and they tried to make it look like that it had to be mandatory, that they had to do that, and someone was scared that they thought they was going to lose their jobs.
Senator, let me ask this question. Pull back on your memory and mine. This legislation out of the Senate last year.
We did.
And it was the same legislation as.
We actually gave them more money in this one.
Okay, so the only thing different between what we passed out of the Senate last year and this year is that they actually got a pay raise included in this.
Yes.
Okay, so. And again, I'm thankful for the registrars, and I know you are too.
Yes.
For the amount of money that they're paid and all that they have to do, and the ability to keep up with what's required for all the voting list, and registering folks and taking folks off that would be deceased, and all those kinds of things. They've got an important job and an important task. Many times it's a challenge to get people to be willing to serve as registrars.
Yes.
Because they don't get paid very much, and it is a difficult task. And so a lot of times these appointing authorities are searching. I've gotten many a phone call, I'm sure you have too, and that's, I'm sure, the case with many of our Senate members. Do you know anybody that would be willing to serve as a registrar? Because we're searching for someone that can work, a part-time job with minimum pay that's basically a service to the community. So, I appreciate them and all that they do, but I appreciate the dialogue here. And you've already said if we've got issues, you can carry it over and people can continue to be educated about it and that. But those were my questions, so I'll summarize and reiterate what we discussed. Number one, we passed the same bill except for the increase in pay last year in the Senate.
Yes.
It basically says if you've got a chance to consider diversity, do it, but there's no requirement, there's no must, and there's no remedy if you don't do it. It's just try to think about it if you can.
Yes.
And then basically it's not changing anything related to their stature as far as state versus county or any of that. And then we're giving them a pay raise from $80 to $100 a day to be willing to do this. And then they need to just post in whatever methodology they come up with. If they want to put it on their website or they want to do whatever, that's fine. But if they just want to write a note on the front door out to lunch, that's okay too, just so that they are making people aware that they just don't go to the office and there's no information as to when they are open or closed, or why?
I couldn't have explained it any better.
That's what I was looking for. Mr. Leader.
That's exactly what it does.
Thank you for that information.
No foul, no harm, and we're not trying to do anything to harm anybody. We just wanted to make sure that there's a fair process. There are people who complain about. I know in some counties that I represent that the Board of Registrars are never open. It's just that they ain't open on the days that they have their day off of work. They just don't know. But if I knew the time, I wouldn't have taken off of work to go and register or to clear up my name because my name didn't show up at the poll the last time, or I've been listed as an inactive voter. I want to know when can I go up there and get it done because they look like they never open when I'm there. And all we ask is that when they are open, we're not saying all three of them have to be there, at least one. At least one person be there in the office. We're not saying all three of you have to be there, because that way they rotate their days in and out when they come to work. We're not trying to tell them when they got to be at work. That's on them.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask colleagues in the body if they still got issues or problems. I want them to come and dialogue with you, or either come to me and say, "Hey, I still got a question. Give me a little time to work this out." I'll report back to you on some of the discussions that we've had. But I appreciate this in-depth explanation.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem.
Mr. President.
Senator Elliott.
Thank you, sir. I'm not anxious to spend any more time up here. I got my time yesterday. But I did want to say I'm very much in support of your legislation. I'm a little frustrated that there is a lot of misinformation going on about your legislation, and I would encourage members to read it for what it says. And we saw some of that in committee, and we tried to correct some of that misinformation. But I think you've got a good piece of legislation. I think it's a fair piece of legislation that'll make it easier for folks to register to vote. We want them to do that. I think every point of it is fair. And so if to the extent that you've gotten emails, check the veracity of those emails. To the extent you've got calls, check the veracity of that, because some of the emails I've seen have just been, there's not a lot of fidelity in them, and it's just not accurate. So if you've got any questions, of course the sponsor can answer them, but I'll be happy to answer any questions as well that I can, because he's got a good piece of legislation. Thank you, Mr. Leader.
And with that, Mr. President, I'm going to ask that this bill be carried over the call of the chair.
I got a motion to carry over call of the chair.
I'll be able to answer those questions.
All right, got a motion to carry over call of the chair. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr.
Senate Bill
President.
81 is carried over call of the chair. Thanks, Senator Singleton. Secretary, call next bill on the calendar.
On page 4 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 84 by Senators Bell relating to filing fees. BR pending.
Mr. President.
Okay, Senator Bell.
Motion to adopt BR using previous row.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
Thirty-one ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 4 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 84 by Senator Bell relating to filing fees.
All right, Senator Bell.
What this bill does allow individuals to distribute assets, mainly like divorce situations, to another party without taxes and consequences from taking them out early. They just basically distribute it to another person. And if Fidelity or whoever's managing their plan, it allows for 120 days without having to file another filing fee with the court system to make any corrections that have to be made. So make a motion to adopt using previous row.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
31 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 84 passes. Thanks, Senator Bell. Secretary, call next bill on the calendar.
On page 4 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 83 by Senator Smitherman relating to indigent defense. BR pending.
Senator Williams.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. If there's no questions at this point, I want to pass the BIR, please.
All right, would you like to use previous roll?
Yes.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
It's 23. Send me the vote. Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
31 32 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 5 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 23 by Senator Williams relating to food products. Committee substitute pending.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, I nicknamed this bill Frankenstein Meats because of the way it's made, but this bill would prohibit the manufacture, sale, of distribution of food products produced from cultured animal cells within the state. Now, that's all it does. No questions.
All right, we're on the committee substitute we need to adopt. You want to use the previous roll?
Yes.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
All right, 32 ayes, 0 nays. The committee substitute's adopted. All right, now final passage.
I'd like to final pass it then. I was in previous row.
Move for third reading. This is the artificial meat bill. Help me get that out. Third reading, be dispensed with use of previous row without objection.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 23 passes amended. Thank you, Senator Williams. Thank you, Senator Singleton. All right, Secretary, call the next bill on the calendar.
On page 4 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 83 by Senator Smitherman relating to indigent defense. BR pending.
All right, real quick, I'd like to recognize some special guests in the gallery. They're the guests of Senator Gudger. When I call your name, if you could please stand. Melissa Betts, which is the director of the Link nonprofit in Coleman, and Dakota Trammell on staff at the Link. If y'all could please stand. Welcome to Alabama Senate. All right, Senator Smitherman.
Mr. President, initially I came up when I was talking about the special order calendar, the possibility of carrying it over because the senator from Huntsville and I did not had an opportunity to finish our discussions about, his thoughts and concerns. And so we okay. And okay. Yeah, and the senator has an amendment. Is it ready yet? They're working on it over there. Well, we'll if we can move for the BIR.
Yeah, we're on the BIR. You want to?
And then after now I'm to use previous role.
All right, any objection? All right, hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 4 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 83 by Senator Smitherman relating to indigent defense.
Senator Smitherman.
Thank you. Yeah, this bill moves to raise the amount that indigent defense attorneys are paid. Right now, it's a rate of $70 an hour. And I can tell you that we have about, I'm just guessing, we have about 5 attorneys or 6 attorneys in here. And if you're willing to work for $70 an hour, raise your hand. You don't see no hands up, do you? That's the problem. They just always do. Even our chair of Judah just smiled. It's so that it's looking to raise it up to what is a reasonable amount. So at this time, we're gonna have, it's 2 amendments that's gonna be offered. And one is from the senator from Huntsville, and it's from our senator standing at the mic at this time. We're going to address both of them, both of the amendments. So whoever comes first is fine with me.
All right, Senator Gavan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, first of all, Senator, I can't believe they can get anybody to work for those rates. By the time you factor in your overhead and your cost of your office and secretary and all the things that you've got to have, malpractice insurance, all those wonderful things that we've got to pay for. Everybody just acts like there's just money flowing everywhere. But, some of those budgets are pretty tight. And so applause those people because that's a job these are jobs that have to be done. And
you're right.
I don't know don't know how they're able to do it. So I think we need to raise it. I have a very modest amendment, I guess, and if I was going to get a full slice of maybe everything I wanted, I might be a little more aggressive with this. But I know our friends in the House are going to want to have some say-so about it. So I'm just, I wanted to chap down on the caps on the Class A felonies. So I'll offer my amendment.
All right, Secretary Reed received the amendment.
Amendment to Senate Bill 83 by Senator Gavan. Replace lines 238 through 239 on page 9 with the following. Fees shall not exceed $6,500.
Mr. President, I just want to say that I see this as a very friendly amendment, and I yield back to you.
All right.
Thank you. So if there are no other questions, I would move adoption of the amendment using previous rule without objection.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I'm okay with it.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The Senator Gavan amendment's adopted. All right, at this time, I want to recognize some special guests in the gallery. The guest of Senator Stewart. When I call your name, if you could please stand. The Lowndes Academy 7th and 8th grade students. If y'all could please stand. Welcome to Alabama Senate. All right, great to have you all today. All right, Senator Melson.
Thank you, Mr. President. When my colleague over there was talking about people complaining or not willing to work for $70 an hour, and I looked at Dr. Stutz and realized we've been working a lot of hours for free. And whether it's a gunshot, a C-section, or any other thing in the middle of the night, we go get called in. So I have an amendment I'd like to offer.
All right, Secretary Reed received the amendment.
This doctor's reimbursement Medicare rate.
Amendment to Senate Bill 83 by Senator Melson. Replace line 100 on page 4 with the following. Replace line 411 on page 15 with the following.
All right. Real quick, before we do that, I want to recognize one more special guest. The guest of the pro tem, Senator Reed, also the son of Hope Braswell, Braden Braswell. We're going to put you on the spot. If you could please stand. Welcome to Alabama Senate. All right. Sorry about that, Senator Melson.
Okay. Well, I'd like to just, my colleague, you heard my comments. I'd like to ask for adopt the amendment using previous row.
I told him I was going to leave that one strictly up to the body.
Okay.
And so I'm not against this amendment or anything. I will say this. As the senator from Huntsville said, I'm sure that problem is going to be addressed when it gets to the House, if some desire to keep the bill in its purest form. But I will say this to you, as I said to you privately. I'll say it in here. I think that they ought to be paid that. You hear what I'm saying? I agree with what you're trying to do. I just want everybody to know that. I agree 100% with what you're trying to get done. So I'm not objecting to the amendment at all. It's just up to the body. And at that, I'll yield back to him. And
all right, so we got a motion to adopt. You want to use previous roll, is that correct? Any objection?
Any objections?
All right, hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
All right, 32 ayes, 0 nays. The Senator Melson amendment's adopted. All right, Senator Smithman. All right, Senator Smithman.
If there's no other amendments or questions, I'd move final passage and now use previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 83 passes. Thanks, Senator Smithman.
Thank you very much.
All right, Secretary, call the next bill.
President, if I could, a moment of personal privilege.
Yeah, before you call the bill, moment of personal privilege.
I just want to say in regards to those young folks that are here or were here from Lowndes Academy, it's interesting that if you're an AISA school like those kids are, that under current regulations, they're not allowed to play against Alabama High School Athletic Association schools. So I think there's some legislation that will be coming
this year. It will give schools, local schools, Alabama High School Athletic Association schools, the ability to start playing AISA schools, and just want to point that out. So those kids could benefit from extra play around here rather than driving 2 or 3 hours to find a game to play.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Senator Barfoot. All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Secretary Calden,
Personal privilege, please.
you're recognized.
Thank you, sir. I just want to let members of the Senate body know that Short the Squirrel is in 305. If you have not been down to take a picture with Short the Squirrel that will be placed in your local newspaper, please do so. This is all about Alabama literacy. Short is now the mascot for Alabama literacy. And basically it's to encourage children in ages 4 through 9 to read. If you have a short moment to read, it's about celebrating reading. It's about creative and interactive materials that they can use, and it's also about community partnerships. So again, they are in all of our school systems. They are working with local school systems. Literacy is very important, and this is one way that we can do this. We know we're in session, but they will get this out to your local newspaper. So please encourage our schools and pre-Ks to take advantage of this and to encourage parents to also take advantage of it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Coleman Madison. All right. Secretary, call next bill on the calendar.
On page 5 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 55 by Senator Orr relating to the Personnel Department. BIR pending.
Mr. President, I move adoption of the BIR using the previous roll, please.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 5 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 55 by Senator Orr relating to the Personnel Department.
So, Mr. President, I want to start and just say and compliment our Personnel Department. I had this bill last session. I didn't file it because I was informed by them and the former director, Graham, who we just did an SJR for a little while ago. They had gone through all the job descriptions and requirements for people in state government and looked at them very critically to see if, in fact, a true bachelor's degree was required for that particular position all through state government. Because what they found in Virginia, which is where they passed this law 2 or 3 years ago, is that there were a lot of jobs that had bachelors that really didn't need a bachelor's degree. And so this, our State Department of Personnel has gone through and edited and removed that requirement. This bill would just make sure that future personnel directors and that particular department would look at the requirements for jobs with a critical eye and not require a bachelor's degree if it really didn't require that one. For example, if you had a bookkeeper, somebody who is doing lower level accounting and it doesn't really require a degree in accounting, but they can do the job functions for that particular job position, then why are we requiring a bachelor's degree for that? And because it excludes a lot of people, if they can do the work without a piece of paper or a degree, then we ought to allow them to be eligible to be hired. And it excluded through the decades, obviously people who didn't have bachelor's degree that could perhaps have done the job, but it was all because the job description required that bachelor's degree. So that's all it does. And I would yield for questions from anybody. From
all right, any questions?
Microphone.
I heard what you said, but I didn't understand. See what I'm saying?
Boy, I've gotten good in politics, and I'm just talking without making any.
No, I said I didn't understand. It's obvious if other people understood because I saw their head doing it.
So what they found, and again, I'll use Virginia as an example. I bet there are other states. In fact, I'm very. I believe there are probably a lot of states that through the years and going back through time time as we got more formal with, okay, what are the requirements for this particular job? You know, how much experience, what kind of educational background? So a lot of them got written in to have a bachelor's degree. And so that's our minimum requirement. To even apply and be considered, you had to have a bachelor's degree. Well, in going through the positions, they found that really you don't have to have a bachelor's, maybe an associate's, but maybe 10 years experience as opposed to 5 years experience would offset the need for a degree. So our state personnel department has been going through all the job descriptions and eliminating, where it makes sense, the requirement for a bachelor's degree. So they've done that in-house. What this bill does is, in the future, if we get future personnel directors, or they go kind of, well, we're just going to require a bachelor's for that, or we're going to require a bachelor's for that, and just it slips and creeps back in that they wouldn't be allowed to do that under the law. They've got to look at each position critically and go, do we really need a degree in this for this position or not? And the criticism would be, or the default would be, not, unless it's absolutely needed. And so that allows a larger pool of people to be eligible to be considered for particular jobs in state government.
I see what you're saying now. It's sort of akin to RNs. If you getting a person for the job description of an RN, then they can come from one of our junior colleges. If they complete that program and pass the state exam, they could come from one of our four-year institutions. So it's not required that they got to be from that four-year institution. Right. It requires that they got to meet those standards and requirements for what that profession, and show and prove through, I guess, testing and whatever else that they are adequate.
Or they had the experience. I had 10 years, maybe it was minimum 5-year experience. Well, if you got 10 years of experience, then you don't need the bachelor's degree. So I get all the nursing statuses confused. I know the gentlelady from Shelby County knows them like the back of her hand, but LPN, licensed nurse, and nurse practitioner, and nurse, just the different RN, and I get them all confused. But yes, I think we're talking the same language here.
Yeah, and I could see where if you were moving into one of those other realms of nursing, that the bachelor's would be necessary.
Correct.
But if you're moving into, like the personnel department did, the assessment of this particular function in these jobs, that you could do that. And I think it has a probative value of helping us be able in certain areas to have adequate number of employees to be able to put in there. I mean,
well, it broadens the pool.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't require a bachelor's, but maybe the applicant has a bachelor's, they're not excluded, but it allows all these people that don't have a bachelor's to apply and be considered.
I get it now. Okay, I'm with you. That's
all right,
a good one.
Thank you. Mr. President, at this time, I'd move third reading using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 55 passes. Thank you, Senator Orr. All right, this concludes our calendar. Senator Reed.
Mr. President,
Senator Singleton.
SB 81 was carried over the call of the chair. I'd like to bring it back up.
All right, Secretary, call SB 81. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right.
On page 3 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 81 by Senator Singleton, relating to the Board of Registrars.
All right, Senator Singleton.
Mr. President, I move for third reading, calling for the long roll.
All right, Secretary, call the long roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Bell. Mr. Butler.
They don't mind.
Mr. Carnley. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chastain. Ms. Coleman. Ms. Coleman Madison. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hovey. Mr. Jones. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kitchens. Mr. Livingston.
What about you, Register?
Mr. Melson.
Don't do nothing elect you shit. They'll be okay. They can't do nothing to you.
Mr. Orr.
Shit. You help get them appointed. They don't help you appointed.
Mr. Price.
Your recommendations. Think about it.
Mr. Reed. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shellnut. Mr. Singleton.
Aye.
Mr. Smitherman. Aye. Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Williams.
Fifteen ayes, 10 nays, 1 abstention. Senate Bill 81 passes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members of the body.
All right, thanks, Senator Singleton. All right, Senator Reed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, we've had a good week. We've had a lot of important legislation. We've worked diligently together to accomplish good things for the people of Alabama. We'll be back at it next week. So let me encourage you to continue to engage with folks back home on topics that are important to them. And we're going to stand adjourned, Mr. President, with a motion until 2 p.m. on Tuesday, February 20th.
All right, heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hold on one second. They're waving their hands somewhere back there before we. Are we good on that? Or motion good? Okay.
Motion's good, Mr. President.
All right. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? All right, we stand adjourned.